Thanks, Nate. Okay, so the Board of Electrologists and Body Art Practitioners Body Piercing Rules and Qualifications Advisory Committee meeting is convening at 10:06 a.m. on August 11th, 2021 at the Health Licensing Office in Salem, Oregon by teleconference call. I will now call roll. Aaron Solomon?
Present.
Seth Dietz? Absent. Leah Journey?
Present.
Chair Shaner?
Present.
And Jared Hill?
Present.
Thank you. And my name is Cynthia Murphy. I'm the qualification analyst for the Health Licensing Office. I work with education, training, and examinations. And the other staff member that is involved in this meeting is Samantha Patnode. Sammy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Sammy Patnode, policy analyst for the Body Art Board, and I'll be on the phone for any type of help or feedback that you need at any time during this meeting.
So we have a new member of the committee, and his name is Jared Hill, and we have invited him to get just a variety of industry and what's the word I'm looking for here this morning? Just a variety of different voices on this committee. So Jared, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Jared Hill. I own Area 51 Piercing. Been professionally piercing in Oregon for 25 years. Licensed APP member for roughly 21. Trained, I think, 8 professional body piercers. And I think 5 of them are APP members now, both with probably 8 or 9 years under their belts. That's about it.
Thank you very much. Aaron, you want to introduce yourself?
Aaron Solomon, owner of Velvet Elvis Piercing in Portland and Gresham. I've been piercing for about 23, 24 years professionally. And I'm a former BRAC member and a former board member and also APP member. Oh, and yeah, trainer, state licensed trainer as well, especially one license, yay. There's that.
Hi, Seth. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry for my tardiness. I was struggling with resetting passwords and some things, trying to get logged in.
Seth, I want to introduce you to Jared Hill. He's a new member of our committee.
We're familiar.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Aaron. And Leah, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Leah. I work at Adorn. I've been piercing for about 12 years. Recent APP member. I joined within the last year, I think December 2020. I finally became an APP member. So, yeah.
Thank you. Cherish, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Cherish. I also work at Adorn. I've been piercing for business coming up on 9 years, a little over 8.5. And I've been in Oregon piercing for just at a year, if I recall. And yeah, I'm here.
Thank you very much. And Seth, did you need to introduce yourself? You said you and Jared were familiar. You wanted to go ahead.
We go way back. I'm Seth. I work at Adorn in Portland. I have for 11 years. I've served on the board for about 5, and back to offer some whatever I can with this rep committee.
Very good. Thank you, guys, and I just want to thank all of you for putting in the time. Like I said earlier, we couldn't do it without your subject matter expertise. So again, thank you very much. Does everyone have the binders that they were sent that we discussed at our last meeting? Yes. Very good. I'll just kind of give a summary. The initial body piercing program was implemented in January of 2012, and for the standard specialty 1 and specialty 2 in addition to the ear piercing. And then in 2018, we made some revisions to the body piercings programs for standard specialty 1 and specialty 2. And then cheek was also moved into the specialty level 1 instead of the specialty level 2. In 2019, the board has requested that we come, it's been a couple years almost, well it has I guess a couple years, slow state government moving, but the board wanted us to come back to the table and relook at those training programs. One of the things that they wanted us to do is look at the standard body piercing training program and maybe reduce the hours on that. The board stated that they didn't feel like it was necessary to reduce it by a lot, but they thought maybe it could be reduced a little bit. So we'll be looking at that today. And then the other thing is they had talked about combining the specialty 1 and specialty 2 piercing programs. The last time at the meeting we discussed putting that as maybe an additional training to the standard body piercing license. However, we had a meeting with our attorney. We are not able to do that. However, as recommended by the board, we can, if this committee wants to look at that option, combining the specialty level 1 and 2 training programs into a different specialty level license, and then talk about what that will look like and talk about the grandfathering that would need to happen for level 1s and level 2s moving together into a different license type, a different specialty type of license. In addition, the committee, or excuse me, the board had also talked about reducing the hours for those specialty level piercing training programs. So we have a lot to talk about today. And then the other thing that we'll be talking about is the examination. It has not been revised since 2012. It's way overdue, and we need to look at the content, the study materials. We need to evaluate where the pass rate statistics are and just evaluate that exam. And so one of the things with an examination committee, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. Unfortunately, we can't do it via MS Teams. I guess that's, in the past we haven't been able to do it because of the confidentiality of the content. However, I've been thinking of ways maybe I can be able to screen share without having to compromise that examination. So we'll be talking about that moving forward. However, that's something that we need to talk about as a committee in regards to committee members. If you, as this committee, want to move forward to write that examination, or if you feel like maybe we should get some other individuals in the industry involved, it's something we'll be talking about later. So, so everybody had an opportunity to look at this book and look at the differences. If you look at the memo that I had given you initially on the front of the book, it gives you what initially the hours were for the standard specialty 1 and specialty 2 training programs were from 2012, what they changed to in 2018, and then some alternates that had been discussed in the past few years. So if you, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Why, just offhand, why the big rush to reduce the hours so much? Just wondering what's the approach to that.
I don't think it's been a rush. I think it's, we've been evaluating since 2012 where this training program is in regards to the number of hours. And initially when we started in 2012, I think it was such a huge public safety concern that the amount of hours was pretty high for the type of training that we needed. And so evaluating over time, looking at public safety, complaints, we have, the committee, the board has determined that it could be reduced. They were quite high in the beginning, 1,150 hours. And if you look at other training programs, for example, tattooing, electrology, the committee and the board kind of wanted to align those more with that. We've heard a lot of comments in regards to nobody can open a school because financially it's unfeasible to actually get the amount of money that you would need to get from your students in order to train them for 1,150 hours. Now, with saying that, again, it's not about getting a school open and, you know, making it financially feasible for a school to operate. It's about public safety. Where do those numbers lie? Which is safe for the public? So
I also, this is Seth, I also think it's more, I mean, I think the most important reason why this is being approached is honestly to also help to make this more accessible to piercers to be able to get licensed. Like, you know, I mean, 1,150 hours was an enormous amount for somebody to go through. I mean, it takes, you know, I don't see a way that somebody can do that under a year, really, realistically. But, you know, and the same thing, that's kind of the reason why I think the specialty levels kind of need to be readdressed or re-examined is, you know, just to make this more accessible, you know, because, like, you know, I mean, as it stands now, you know, you have to get 26 piercings to walk in the door, or no, sorry, yeah, 26 procedures. You know, let's just be honest, like, we don't get, I mean, even at high volume studios, that takes a long time to accrue, and that's saying that person is there every single day observing every single procedure. You know, it's just, you know, I think there's different ways to approach this and just make it more accessible with still keeping things safe. You know what I mean? It's just trying to find that balance of, you know, safety and accessibility for practitioners.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things is in regards to specialty level 2, couple things, like you said, Seth, the number of piercings or the individuals out there that want those piercings is limited, and like you said, it's kind of hard to get them in the door. So, and then the other thing is we're having, there's been concerns about the number of individuals that want to train. So in specialty level 2, it's almost like the individuals are holding it close to themselves to monopolize, in a sense, that's being able to do those specialty levels. So it's not, the training is not readily available to individuals who want to get that training. So, which is standard in any industry. You always want to hold it close. We have found, however, as a state agency and as an industry, we need to make it available for individuals. And so again, keeping public safety in mind first most. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, that's a challenging conundrum, because, you know, it's like, how do you convince people to train people that don't want to train people, or how do you train somebody without a trainer? You know,
Yeah, and it is limited.
I don't know if there's a way.
So, does anybody else have any comments or concerns, or want to talk about any of the programs?
This is Aaron. I know last meeting we discussed the possibility of some type of accreditation kind of situation where, really qualified, like, for instance, people that have, like, taught genital piercing, you know, classes at APP conference, for instance, being able to kind of help somebody grandfather in, perhaps, on, you know, specialty type piercings and things like that. I don't know if that ever went anywhere, or you know, Seth and Leah and chairs probably remember a little bit of the discussion.
Mm-hmm. So what my understanding was, and what we had talked about, is allowing individuals from other states to be able to train instead of just limiting to Oregon trainers? Is that what you're saying, Aaron?
That's what I was getting at, yeah, rather than just limiting to the few specialty trainers that are available in Oregon and opening that up to other qualified individuals to accept that training as part of getting licensed essentially for those specialty ones.
Okay. So what we can do, Aaron, is once we get through the discussion on the standard and specialty levels, what we can do is Sammy can step in and talk about the rules in regards to what qualifications, and then that discussion can come in her segment of the program, okay? Which is at the end of this meeting, not program, but. All right?
Sorry to bring up the end at the beginning.
No, it's all good. No, because it was discussed in our meeting was shortened the last meeting we had, and so definitely still on the table, still up for discussion. But we'll have Sammy do that. She's at the end of the agenda, and the reason why she's at the end of the agenda is because when we do recommendation in regards to changes in the hours or combining the specialty levels, that's when she steps in and she does her expertise in writing those rules. So, all right.
Great.
All right, so let's talk about the standard. Let's just talk about standard in regards to hours. So currently, a total of 750 hours, 250 theory, 500 practical with 300 procedures. And if you look under tab 1B, it will summarize that for you with the current rule that's in place.
Sorry, this is Leah. I have a question. We had talked about kind of breaking up the specialty 1 and specialty 2 into individual procedure, like qualifications. Is that what you were saying that you discussed with people and we can't do?
So one of
we talked about. Sorry, what was that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just elaborating, like we had talked about like having VCH as a certain thing that you can get qualified and HCH instead of having it all under the umbrella of specialty 1. So that way if somebody doesn't want to do Frechette piercing, they don't have to get qualified in Frechette piercing, but they can still do a hood if they get qualified.
So unfortunately, we did talk to our attorney, and we do not have the authority to eliminate the specialty piercings. And so what authority we do have is to look at what that specialty license will look like. We don't have to have specialty 1 and specialty 2. We can have a specialty license, and we can define what that license looks like. So for example, out of the 8 categories right now, in the specialty 1, you have to complete, let me look at what those numbers are. You have to do the 26 procedures and 4 different types. And then in the specialty 2, it's only out of the 8 categories, I think you only have to do 3 different types. So what we can do is look at that as a whole, as a 1, if this committee wants to do that, and say you have to complete this many out of, say, let's say we'll do category A would be initially listed in specialty 1 and category B in specialty 2. So if now you have a combined license, you can say out of category A, you can complete this many within this many hours, and category B, which are those ones that out of specialty 2 that are very invasive, and you may only be required to perform 2 of those, or maybe 1 of those, or whatever this committee decides what that specialty level will look like as a whole, as 1 unit, if that's what you're interested in, or leaving them as they are and just reducing the hours. Those are options that we have. So that's something this committee needs to talk about and determine moving forward. However, having that just the individual training for those specialties above and beyond a standard is not something we can do.
Okay, thank you.
So going back to the standard in regards to the hours, the current 750 with the 500 practical and 300 procedures. Is anyone, does anyone want to talk about maybe reducing those and what that would look like? You know, there's also been, if you look at the alternates and their standard, alternate under tab C, total hours of 575, theory hours 125, practical hours 450 with 200 procedures, and then the second alternative was very low. It was the 345 total hours was 75 theory, 270 practical, and 120 procedures. And I think that second alternate was brought into place in regards to consistency for tattooing. So that was a very large reduction. However, again, keeping in mind that individuals, I think, who work in this industry do both tattoo and body piercing, and so keeping it kind of standard across the board in regards to those hours, just an alternate to discuss. So.
This is Seth. I have a quick question. Jared, have you trained anybody under the current programs or anything?
Yeah, I've trained about, the current programs, I believe, 3 piercers.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Do you think that the current, number of procedures is, sufficient to get somebody ready to pierce on their own and confident?
I mean, I know, so starting to kind of hear in this meeting that people like the reduction of hours, but I like a lot of
Where
hours.
it sits right now?
I do. I like the repetition. I like that you have to go through it over and over again. We all know that piercing one day for an apprentice is not going to be the same piercing the next day. You know, they're anxious and they got their head in a different spot. It takes a while to learn that riding a bike, you know, evenness and just keeping even keel. The consistency, yes, that's a great word. So I personally like the number of hours. There are 1 or 2 things that I'm interested in why we have, specifically the male-female difference. I don't understand that with the nibbles. But I do like the hours of time, personally. I do like a lot of time, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of, I haven't actually put anybody through the training program personally, but at our studio, I have watched a couple people go through it, and we are currently at our studio have one person that's going through the current training program, and I'm just trying to kind of think about whether or not they're at the very end of their training. They're turning in their paperwork and application right now and getting signed up for their practical exam and all that stuff. And I'm trying to consider whether or not I think I think that the current, I kind of personally feel that where he's at right now is about the right time to get him trying to work things out on his own. And I personally kind of feel that the hours where they sit right now for the standard license is about where it should be. If I think if they're reduced, they don't need to be reduced by a whole lot. Definitely not that lowest, that lowest recommendation, 345 hours. That's insanely too low. I think that's dangerously low. 750. I mean, it's kind of hard for me. Maybe it's just my ADD brain, but it's sort of hard to equate hours into actual learning and procedures. Because there are certain procedures that can, take a split second, and there's other procedures it might take 45 minutes to an hour. But it currently sits at it currently sits at 300 procedures until you can test and apply to get your license. I think that's about right for me. I mean, I know I'm not like the final judge, and there's 5 other people in this committee, but me personally, I kind of feel good about where the current standard body piercing hours and procedure numbers sit. I mean, if you want to reduce it, I wouldn't suggest doing it by a whole lot.
Cherish.
What is the current? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
What is the current tattoo hours? Do we know that?
350. It's 350.
Wow.
Maybe 360, 350 or 360. Real low.
That's real low.
Yeah, it is. But they're not doing all the different areas in the sense of they're applying the ink in the tattoo, but they're not doing different piercings and different holes in the they're applying the
10
ink.
forearm tattoos, 10 arm tattoos, 10 chest tattoos.
No, 10 nose. No. So
it's hard to compare, sort of.
yeah. Cherish, I had a question. You just went through this program, didn't you? I mean, you're newly licensed, so you just went through this.
I'm newly licensed, but I was piercing in another state, so I was able to
Get reciprocity.
to do the reciprocity route. But I did go through a very long apprenticeship, a thorough apprenticeship. I added up the hours once. Hang on one second. I personally put in about 2,000 hours as an apprentice before I finished. I have been through a more lengthy time period in a studio. I do think that the current program is reasonable. I think that it's the right amount of difficult, if that makes sense. Like there's the right a good amount of time that's into learning to really pick up on the safety and being able to do things properly. I don't know that reducing it further would be beneficial, especially if we're talking about potentially reducing using the specialty requirements.
Okay. Does anyone else want to comment in regards to the hours? Aaron, Megan, Sherry?
Yeah, I was going to comment that about where it's sitting now, I want to say, and I don't have it right in front of me, I'm using my phone to do this meeting, so I can't look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of more closely in line with what the APP's suggested guidelines for apprenticeship are than something that would be of reduced hours. And a lot of good people with a lot more than just us kind of worked on getting that together to kind of just get a really kind of good base kind of level. Like this should be like a minimum kind of standard for a professional piercing apprenticeship, not just in Oregon, but kind of in the world, So I don't see with the standards necessarily the need to reduce hours. I actually have only put one person through the standard training program, but it was years ago, so it was still when it was like 1,150 hours, and we still made it work. It was a little exhaustive, of course, but I feel like where it stands right now with 750, 300 procedures is pretty good. Right in the sweet spot. If we're going to reduce hours, I would suggest like the minimal amount, definitely not anywhere close to that low number, as like Seth was saying. I feel like not nearly enough training for somebody to do this safely.
So, Erin, one of the things in regards to the APP, they have 1,200 hours of working with a mentor piercing. One of the things that is different is they have 100 hours of documented procedure observation and 50 piercings performed. I mean, that number, that to me seems in 1,200 hours. What are they doing the other, I don't know, 1,000 hours. I don't know. So, the hours are a lot different, or the procedures are a lot different in the APP. However, the hours are more consistent with what we started with in the beginning back in 2012. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, I wanted to give you the numbers from the APP of what.
I think the APPs are just really off balance, reduce the hours, equal out the procedures, and I kind of think we're really close to a pretty good sweet spot to preparing a piercer to be confident to do this on their own as an individual. Again, if we reduce it, if we reduce the standard, it shouldn't be by a terribly lot.
That's 100% my agreement. That's kind of why I was wondering why, when I first looked at it, why we were trying to reduce it more. So I would agree with you, Smith. I think we're in a great spot.
Okay.
Personally.
So I think with that, what I'm hearing from all of you is we're just going to recommend to the board, we're just going to leave it stat, move forward with, keep it what it is.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. Cherish, I can't see you. Do you have
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And Megan, you didn't shake your head. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's, I agree with what everybody said. I think it's a really nice balance.
Okay, very good. So we'll just move on to the specialties then. Excuse me while I cough for a second. Hang on. Okay, so let's talk about specialties. What are your thoughts on leaving them the same versus, and maybe looking at the hours or combining them? Excuse me, you guys. Okay.
Sorry, this is Carrie. I haven't gone through the specialty training yet, but I think that combining them might make it more difficult to get that training completed because of how uncommon some of the piercings in the specialty level 2 are. But because I haven't been through that training, I could be wrong. I wanted to kind of pose that to everybody else. Do you agree?
Well, it depends on how the training is worded, because how it's worded currently, you're to get a specialty level 2 or a 1. I don't believe you're required to do a certain number of every single one.
Yeah.
You have to do a certain number of at least 3 of the 8 in that category. Is that correct? Is it Serentia?
Yes.
That accurate? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, for instance, if in specialty level 2, all you have to do to get a license, technically all you really have to do and perform is see 3 different types, like an apodravi, an ampling, and a triangle, and then all of a sudden you can do anything else in that category. You can do a Princess Albertina even though you've never even touched one of those. And that's a crazily, insanely different piercing. But the general consensus is if you have already that amount of advanced knowledge, you should be confident at that point in your career or education that you would be able to approach that and do it safely. And yeah, that's currently how it is. But you know, the trickiest part with these specialties, and again, my experience, and is one, the accessibility, being able to like make this accessible for practitioners to obtain these specialty licenses, because right now, let's just be honest, it's incredibly hard to get people licensed under these because these just aren't super common piercings that we get walk-in every single day. I mean, you know, I'm probably one of the most established piercers in the area, and also licensed in all of these. And, you know, there are sometimes I don't do any genital piercings in an entire week or two. And there are sometimes I might do 5 or 6 in 1 week. But it's just not super consistent. These walk in the door. It's not like a nostril piercing where we're going to guarantee that we're going to, you know, do 30 a week. You know, it's, you know, it's just kind of a different thing. And so, like, right, and, you know, another thing to consider is, like, you know, there are piercers that come in reciprocity, but there is no reciprocity for specialty at the moment. For instance, one of our piercers, Billy Wood, you know, he's been a piercer for as long as I have. And he is equally as good of a piercer as me. Been piercing for 15 years, all throughout the country. Has pretty much all of the same training that I do. I'm licensed to do all specialty 1 and 2, and he's not, because he hasn't gone through the training program yet, you know? So he's signed up, and he's watching me do procedures he already knows how to do, and just going through the motions, you know? And I think this is kind of a waste of a lot of people's time and energy, to be honest. But we just got to figure out a way. I mean, I think there has to be a compromise, you know what I mean? Figure out a way to make this accessible but still safe, you know what I mean?
What if, go ahead, Jared, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think Seth touched on a multitude of really good topics there, but I didn't want to forget about one, and I guess really what I wanted to do was ask a question about one. Have you guys exhausted a little bit more of a grandfathering clause for people out of state, like Billy, or in my case, Peck, who was a level 2 licensed organ piercer, but because he let his license lapse, now he has to go through becoming licensed again. So have you exhausted the grandfather clause from other states in a sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, Sir Anthony. I mean, it's basically reciprocity, and the thing, from what I understand, where the problem arises is that because no other state has specialty licenses,
Got it.
there is no such thing as reciprocity. There's not like an equal to equal, you know, give and take, you know, you give me a license, I give you a license deal, because there's nobody that has this license. So we're the like, you know, so it's like, how do you, it's a matter of, I mean, now Peck's situation is a little different because he had it before, let it lapse, and yeah, that's sort of like a weird technicality that I don't have an answer for, but you know, I think we should work on some sort of solution to try to figure out a way to be able to apply some sort of reciprocity for people that, you know, are confident in these things. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that in the wording of Oregon, but.
So what we can do is, as we get to the end, when Sammy talks about rules, let's bring this up in regards to license pathways and how we can get individuals from other states to come in for their licenses, and then in addition, who can train. So those two options are questions that Sammy can address at the end, okay?
Yeah.
So here's some things that I have thought about. So in combining these two programs, what we can do, here's a thought, just to mull this over. Currently with the 26, with the 10 observed, 4 different, for 4 male, 4 female, and at least 2 cheek piercings, what we can do is do 16 hours instead of 26, and we can make it 3 male, 3 female, and then the 2 cheek piercings, and then add specialty level 2 to it, which is currently 16 hours, and we can make that 10 hours for a total program of 26 hours. And then what you can do, instead of at least 3 different types of piercings as specified, what you can do is make it, actually, maybe we could make it 8 total, so that would be a total of 24 hours, and then you can make it 2 different types of piercings in the second category. You could categorize the standard for the 16 hours, and then for the 8 hours for the specialty 2 categorize that as category B. Does that make sense?
So you're talking about combining the 2 licenses into one, but to obtain that you have to do a certain number of category A and then also a certain number of category B? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So category A would be what is currently listed in the standard or specialty 1, which currently requires 4 of each, but you could reduce that to 3 of each, and then plus the 2 cheek piercings, and then add the 8 hours on top of that for the specialty level 2, and instead of 3 each, you could do the 2 each different types.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I mean, that would still, you know, it would still keep specialties, you know, established, but it would also, you know, it would definitely make it a little more accessible, easily accessible to get that number of services. I mean, the question becomes, do we think that makes, is that the sweet spot, you know, to make somebody confident enough to approach that unsupervised and on their own? And maybe, you know, with you know, building on, I mean, because this is basically building on, you know, their previous education from the standard program. I would like, I don't know, Cynthia, I would like to see those numbers like written out. I know you're just kind of talking about them, but you know, seeing them written out would be nice.
Do you want me to pull up a document, and we could work it? Or would you rather me put something together, email it to you, and then we can schedule another committee meeting in a few weeks?
Well, I mean, we can chat about it a little bit right now. I mean, does other members of this committee feel that that's kind of something that you like? Do you like the idea of merging the licenses together? Do we like the idea of keeping them separate and reducing the hours to make them more accessible and more realistically obtainable? You know?
One thing is, Seth, whether you reduce those hours or not in specialty level 2, the problem is going to lie with the individuals that are going to provide the training. It's not about the number of hours, it's the people who are providing the training. Just keep that in mind.
It's about the number of, so the problem becomes is that, you know, there's only like 24 specialty level 2 people licensed in Oregon, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, I'm just guessing. 18. There's 18 special level 2 piercers, and how many of those 18 are approved trainers? Maybe a dozen, 10 to 12?
10
of those.
Yeah.
So 10. So currently there are 10 people that you can learn how to do. I mean,
That's
I don't know.
not a lot.
I mean, it's not a lot. But the thing about it though is like how many licensed piercers are in Oregon right now? They're like 80, 70.
No,
I mean that's
there's 103.
There's 103. That's 10%.
Yeah.
But then again, you're asking yourself, how many of those piercers have done level 2 correctly and properly? You know, I mean, probably less than the 10 that are already licensed to do them. You know, in my opinion.
Hard to say that, you know. Yeah, I mean that's certainly. I mean, I'm always skeptical, obviously, but you know, that's at the same time I kind of think that's to an extent that's speculation. I mean, you know, this is the thing, like people that are going to skirt the law are going to skirt the law regardless. You know, people that are bad piercers are going to be bad piercers, whether or not you have a specialty with 2 license or not. You know, and to be 100% honest, specialty licenses are not really preventing people that shouldn't be doing those piercings from doing them to begin with now. Because
Yeah.
I see people, I mean, I'm seeing specialty level 2 piercings come into our studio from studios that don't have specialty level 2 piercers. You know what I mean?
But I think,
So people that are going to skirt the law are going to skirt the law. People that are bad piercers are going to be bad piercers. You know?
But the point is that if we, as the state, accept the licensing and we say, okay, you're licensed to do them, then we're letting those people do them as the state, which could be dangerous in a sense. So.
Yeah, I mean.
Here's my. So, for example, Seth, and to support Jared, we're allowing them to do a number of these piercings without, and there's 8 in this category, they only have to do 3 different types. So there's 5 other ones that they can do and never have had training at all. But I think like supporting Seth, I mean, once you do one of these invasive piercings, whether it's, you know, through and under or over and down or, you know, sorry, without, you know, I think that experience is, you're getting that experience and then you're applying it to the other types of piercings. Therefore, you don't have to, and again, not available, you don't have to perform and observe every one of these 8 categories of piercings in order to know how to do a genital piercing.
Yeah.
You have to have experience in regards to what that anatomy is and how you could harm that individual, but how you're inserting the needle and where you're inserting the needle, I think is the most important aspect, and knowing how you could harm that individual. So necessarily, you wouldn't have to perform all 8 of these in category 2 and again in category 1, as long as you get enough experience in anatomy and performing these specialty piercings in order to pierce any type of the anatomy, no matter whether it's up or over or down and through, or you know what I mean.
I kind of think we're getting a little like, I mean, I'm sorry, Leah had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Leah.
So, I actually have had a similar debate, or witnessed a similar debate in chimed in a bit with some of on Cyborg when there was body modification laws coming into play with Australia, when all of that stuff was going down in Australia with heavy mods. And there was a point made that certain rules and stricter regulations is not going to stop the people who are already breaking the law. The people who are already doing the specialty 2 piercings without their specialty 2 license, we're not going to stop them. The people who was stopping them are people like Billy Wood and other folks who actually would be doing great piercings, but they're following the law. So helping it to get more qualified people licensed is certainly not going to stop the hacks out there, but it's going to help get more quality piercings out there. So that's what this sounds a lot like to me. Is a similar conversation that I had years and years ago about body modification, which I know we're not discussing at all, but it sounds a lot like that of, we're not going to stop the hacks, and we're not co-signing on their bad work. There's going to be bad work coming from any level of licensing, but it's going to help more qualified people get there, or more people get qualified, is at least what I see from lowering the hours. Because like Seth said, Billy Wood doesn't have a license, but Billy Wood can pierce a hood, you know? So that's my thoughts on it. That's why I would like to see less hours and kind of less high regulation.
The other thing is in regards to complaints, we're not seeing complaints in regards to, individuals who are incompetent to, or, compromising the safety of the public. We haven't seen them. And if we do, that will be how we regulate an individual who is incompetent and should not be piercing, is via, the outcome dependent upon the outcome of the complaint. If the individual didn't have the license, or if he didn't, or if he fraudulently obtained the training, that type of thing. That is going to regulate your industry, which is how we regulate all industries, is based on, putting the standards in place and then following up with the complaints and the investigations.
Well, part of the reason why I kind of think so there's kind of a weird lag that we have to also just kind of account for. There's two things. One, the complaint number is low to non-existent because of a few things. One, it's kind of like just like sexual assaults. Like the vast majority of sexual assaults go unreported. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The vast majority of botched piercings go unreported. I promise you.
Yes.
Okay? So just because you're not actually seeing those complaints absolutely does not mean that it's not actually happening. So that's one point I just want to make. And the second point I want to make is you also have to consider the reason why you're also seeing such a low to nothing number is because we just don't do a whole lot of these procedures. I am an established piercer at a popular studio in a high volume city, and I probably do maybe 5 to 10 a month tops. That's less than 100 a year probably. It's not a lot. Just realistically. And that's in the high volume studio. That's not even in a medium to low volume studio.
Aaron?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was going to try to put my hand up function. I was going to say, Seth, and out of those 5 to 10, how many are actually specialty 2 on top of that? Because I have a specialty 1, and the reason that I a couple of reasons when we were out doing the grandfathering, I was around in Oregon at that point already when the big license changeover happened, and I was able to grandfather in for specialty 1 because they're the more common piercings as far as genital piercings that people want. Things like, like Leah mentioned, like hood, Prince Albert, Prenum, things like that are the more common ones. And honestly, at that point, I had contacted my old studio because I'd already been living in Oregon for a while, and I'd done at that point, 1 or 2 piercings, and this is out of being in Oregon for about 4 years. I'd done 1, 2, maybe 3 piercings on that specialty 2 list the entire time that I'd lived in Oregon for 4 years, And so rather than falsify my paperwork, I said, hey, I only get asked for these piercings 1, 2, maybe 3 times a year. It's not a big deal for me financially to not have my specialty 2, so I didn't really push it because when I contacted my old studio, they said, oh yeah, I'm sorry, we only have to keep our consent forms on file for X amount of years, and so those were burned on a bonfire years ago. We can't give you all the, amphelangs and opigravias and didos and stuff that you have done in the past for proof for Oregon. So I just kind of let it go. And once again, it's like, and so I just took all the amphelangs and didos and triangles and stuff like that out of my genital portfolio and called it a day.
And you haven't done those piercings in years now, right?
And now I haven't done those piercings in years. So out of the genital piercings, because, you know, like Seth's saying, and our studio isn't even close to high volume as Adorna's, but I still, you know, maybe do like Seth's saying, like 5, 7 genital piercings a month, maybe. And those obviously are almost all vertical heads. You know, and with like a PA or a frenum sprinkled in there, maybe a scrotum. But, you know, it's the type of thing where even for a really high volume studio, of the genital piercings you're actually doing, most of them are the more popular ones in Specialty 1. And so, once again, we're kind of hitting that brick wall when somebody that might have the training or qualification or just the basic knowledge that by that time that they've got to that point of knowledge and experience can perform those piercings, but it would, I mean, sometimes maybe take years to obtain what would be, you know, even with minimal qualifications for Specialty 2. And that would be my only concern with combining the two, is that checking off those few Specialty 2 licenses or Specialty 2 piercings that rarely come in, that you've got all your hoods, all your PAs, all your frenums, all the stuff that you would do on a normal basis, and you're just waiting to do like an amphelang, a triangle, an opigravia, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and now you can't even get like what essentially would be Specialty 1. I am definitely for a little bit of hour reduction, because as Seth pointed out, once you have that knowledge base that you've made it through the standard training program, especially since we all kind of unilaterally seem to agree that reduction in those hours, you know, wasn't really a thing that we wanted to explore. So somebody that has the good knowledge base that can, you know, hopefully with a responsible mentor, which once again is something that is somewhat regulated through Oregon, I don't see it being a thing that should be unattainable for somebody who is knowledgeable. Sorry, kind of went on around there.
No, that's good.
So yeah, kind of think we're sort of kind of saying all the same stuff in just different ways, sort of. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really heard much from Jared about this, but
I did want to say something. It seems like one of the big focuses is kind of something that I sort of touched base on, and that's individuals really needing the ability to grandfather other piercers from other states. And I really feel like we're looking at the grandfathering clause and we're mixing it up with the licensing clause of level 2. I personally like the idea of level 1 and level 2 being separated. I would agree that amphelangs don't walk in the door. I do think that location and jewelry has a lot to play with whether you do a lot of heavier mods, especially in that area. But I think that a grandfather is extremely important with people that are maybe have gone through APP courses or even taught these courses or even have worked in other places for long. But as a state, if we are going to say, I am now handing you a license and I'm allowing you to do all the level 2s underneath, you have to have at least some of those numbers underneath them. I love the idea of not having to do all of them, and I've always loved that idea, but I do like the separation between level 1 and level 2, and I do think you do need to have a certain number done in level 2 that can be, you know, life-threatening piercings. So I got to agree with that. And I really think we got to look at grandfathering, because I think a big problem here is that we're all really upset at the grandfathering issues, and rightfully so, because there's amazing piercers that can't pierce in Oregon. But I don't think a reduction in learning how to pierce these levels is responsible. I think having the numbers high is responsible, making them go through. Well, if you're going to do amphelangs or opigravias, then I want 5 opigravias, you know, and that's the reality. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it. I think we really need to look at grandfathering, and I think we really need to keep the 2, level 1 and level 2 separate. Maybe relook at what's level 1 and what's level 2. You know, I mean, you should be able to be doing the hoods, the frenums, the PAs, you know.
Perfect. So
yeah, so I mean, when this was all first, you know, approached, in 2011 or 12 when this was first conceived. There was definitely a push to put all genitals into its own category. I personally always have felt like most of the specialty level 1 genital piercings are basically standard body piercings.
Agreed.
And I think that any basic level piercer should be able to confidently do those piercings. The hang up becomes essentially if you push those basics, the specialty 1 into standard, you would have to force people to do those piercings that may not want to touch genital piercings. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So, and you don't necessarily want to force people to touch other people's genitals if they don't necessarily want to touch other people's genitals.
Yeah.
And I kind of respect that. So, to me, I kind of feel, I kind of feel comfortable leaving it at 2 separate specialty licenses. That way you can do all the piercings if you want without having to touch genitals. If you want to continue on and do those genital piercings, then you can obtain a specialty level 1. And if you want to do the advanced ones, the more dangerous ones, you can pursue further training and, do that. I think one of my biggest concerns is I think the way that the current law is worded is there is a time limit on when you have to complete that program by. Isn't that correct? It's like 9 months? Yeah.
Let's look here. It
Well,
says,
that, you don't work in a high volume studio. You only get 3 epiduravians that walk in the door, every 6 months. So, you're going to run out of time before you can even complete the program. It's kind of again, I think it's,
specialty.
I think the main reason why you don't see a lot of specialty level 2 piercers currently is because it's so hard to, it's just really challenging to get those numbers in the door.
Seth, we don't have a maximum time frame, we have a minimum. So for example, on specialty level 1, you cannot complete that program in less than 2 months.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, maybe I was thinking of the standard piercing program. I think that has a expiration. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Never mind.
that's okay.
And yeah, I think it's a matter because I know basically when you have that trainee license when you're doing your initial standard, I assume that you have essentially a separate specialty 1 or specialty 2 trainee license while you're doing that, and you would have to kind of renew. And there's no cap on how many times you could renew as a trainee for the specialty, or because I want to say there might be a cap for the standard, or you said there's just a minimum and there's not a maximum. Somebody could train for 10 years if they wanted to.
Well, that probably wouldn't happen because
Hopefully,
I see what you're saying hypothetically, yeah.
hypothetically, that's just, I was just making sure, covering all the bases there because, Seth was saying,
again, you just want to make sure that it's that these are obtainable licenses to actually get, because out of the how many specialty 2 licenses do we have?
15. Yeah.
15. Now, how many of those actually went through a training program?
I believe all of them.
No, because I was I
see. Yeah.
Me, Desta, Jewelry, I can name, Jared, I'm sure, got it, he didn't have to go through a training program. We provided the documentation, we provided the release forms and the documentation showing that we had done those amounts. We were grandfathered in
I'll have to look, Seth, I don't have those numbers.
That's what I'm saying. I bet you that number is incredibly small.
Right?
The people that have actually completed the specialty level 2 training program, I would bet it's like 4 or 5, maybe 4 or 5 people.
All in the same studio.
Probably all in the same studio. Yes, because there's like so few trainers that are also specialty level 2 piercers that are also willing to actually train people that are, I mean, and I don't know anybody that really trains people outside of their own studio these days, really. Mm-hmm. You know? I kind of think that we need to figure out a way to make this a bit more accessible. You know? I mean, I'm not saying make it easier. Like, I don't think we need to take away the safety aspect, but we need to figure out a way to make people be able to get this license. Like, again, like there are people that are well competent to do this. And I don't know if I have necessarily like a solution. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of talking out loud, but just voicing my opinion or my concerns, you know.
So what I hear you saying, all of you saying, is that you want to keep the specialty 1 and the specialty 2 separate. Yeah?
I don't like it separate, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think maybe possibly reducing the numbers a bit and the amount of procedures. I think it's something that it's worth taking a look at.
Sounds great. So why don't we go with that? Let's keep them separate, and then let's look at the individual programs. So let's go under tab 2B. I'm going to run down the hall and take about 3 minutes, and I'll be right back.
No problem.
So 2B when we come back, and I have, that kind of goes with the suggestion that I had a minute ago, Seth, in regards to the numbers. And if you go to 2B, go behind the green separator to the last page under B, and that will summarize that training program, okay? In regards to what the piercings are, how many needs to be observed, how many needs to be performed, total numbers. That'll make it easier for us to have this discussion. And I'm going to turn my video and audio just muted, and I'll be right back. Just give me a couple minutes, guys, okay? Thanks.
No problem.
I'm back. And so is everybody looking at the page that I'm talking about, the last page under B, 2B?
Mm-hmm. Is it are you talking about the gridded training program, the tracker?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, it shows the 26 required practical procedures, 10 procedures in which the trainee observes and participates, and 16 procedures performed by the trainee under direct supervision but without assistance. So, and then when you go down to the 10 observed, it shows that you have to do 4 male and 4 female procedures and at least 2 cheek. And then under performed, 16 4 male and 4 female procedures with at least 2 cheeks. So that's what we need to talk about in regards to hours and procedures. If you want to reduce, where do you want to reduce it at? So my suggestion earlier, Seth, was instead of 26, taking down to 16. And you could do 6 observed, 3 male, 3 female, and 2 cheek. And then, well, I guess that would be, hang on, that'd be 12 hours. So
I would
I don't know.
Maybe
just
like
throwing out numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would kind of like to see the observed and participated numbers a little more balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you want to, like, this is for specialty level 1, yeah? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what it currently is? This is the current?
Yes.
Yeah.
You could do 8 observed and 8 performed, and 3 male, 3 female, plus 2 cheek for the both the observed and participated to make them equal.
Yeah.
Or even if you wanted to do 10 and 10.
Yeah.
Does the performed mean doing the complete aspect of the piercing? So doing the needle push as well as the jewelry install?
Yes.
Okay, so performed cannot be considered cleaning, marking, and...
No, that's observed and participated.
Perfect.
Like the first, like by the time you're in specialty level 1, you should be ready, clean and prep and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Put in jewelry.
Yes. On the qualification,
Yes.
That's maybe a potential loophole for maybe someone who doesn't want to do cheek. Maybe we decide to up cheek. Well, if you don't want to do it, you can still, be a participant in one. I just wanted the qualification. I just wanted the exact,
Mm-hmm.
They cannot have any assistance when performing.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know. No,
Yeah.
that was my real question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, Seth, wanted to look at equaling them out instead of even if you left them at the 10 observed and 10, that would put the hours at the 20 instead of 26. And then you could do the 4 female, 4, you could leave it at that with the 2 for both observed and participated, or excuse me,
And just take
performed.
out the 4 extra, like the 4 different extra specified and the 4 extra different performed.
So you would have 10 observed, and you would have 4 male, 4 female, so that's the 8, plus the
And
2
2
cheek piercings,
Yeah.
that would be the 10. And they'd have to observe that, and then instead of the 16 performed, you would have it as the 10, same thing, of the 4 male, 4 female, and the 2 cheek. And so it would go from, you'd still be, it'd go to 20 hours instead of 26.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to jump in. I do want to make one point. Why so in level, like say in level 2, you have to perform so many, and you can choose what you want, right? Say like the 3 Apadravya, the 3 Ampleg.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have a real issue sort of with what Seth touched base on a little bit. Why do we have to have the male and the female difference in level 1? If someone wants to get their level 1 and they decide that they don't want to pierce saphods for some reason, why are we saying you have to do the male and the female in order to get the level 1 if all you're going to do is PAs? Why can't you choose, 6 all to be PAs? What I'm getting at is some piercers specifically want the ability to pierce certain piercings and they don't want to pierce other ones, but we're not allowing them to do those piercings. Why can't we have the same number category where you can kind of pick and choose any of the category as long as you're within the category?
That is how it is. Like, you don't have to do every single piercing, but the thing about it is...
4 male, 4 female, though. Why is there the separation with the male and the female? Why?
Because, otherwise, in the training program, somebody could do nothing but BCHs and then be licensed to do PAs out the door, and Oregon could license them to technically do PAs and foreskin and frenums and guiche piercings, but they never had that training. So you have
what we're doing in level 2. We're 100% allowing that in level 2. We're saying you could pierce an Apadravya and you could never have pierced the Princess Albertina, but if you choose to pierce it, you can pierce it.
Well, no, that's how it is. That's how it is in specialty level 1 also. Like, you could do, you have to do, like, to get a level 1 license, you have to do at least 4 different piercings. You don't have to do all, 10 or 12 listed. So I could do a scrotum piercing, a frenum piercing, a PA, a VCA, and then, without touching any kind of outer labia, I could be licensed to do that. That's how it is currently here in Specialty Level 1.
I'm totally aware of that. That's totally not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is why is there a male and female? Why is that? Yes.
Because for public safety, you need to know how to perform a piercing on the male and the female genitalia. So it's not that maybe it's the number of piercings per se, but you have to have some general experience doing male and female, because if you've only done male and we allow you to do female, but you're not familiar with the anatomy of the female and you haven't familiarized yourself with the piercing of the female, but you're going to allow somebody to do it without getting that experience, it's really not safe for the public.
Personally, for me, I think that piercers need to be familiar with all types of anatomy. So I like the idea of having, piercers training on both types of anatomy. I think that we can maybe update the verbiage, instead, I would like to see the verbiage updated maybe, instead of like, it could be like, I forget how we have it worded on our website now, but like vulva piercings or,
I think opal and penile or something along those lines.
or penile piercings,
I get it. I'll look into
But,
that. I'll look into the updating with the gender neutrality.
I would like that.
Neutrality.
Yeah. Thank you. But I personally feel that, I think that people need to be familiar with both types of anatomy.
Yeah, I guess my point's not coming across, and that's okay. Sometimes,
Is it the maximum number or the minimum number, the 4 and the 4? Do you feel like maybe that's too much and you should only do?
No, I think I get your point. Like, you're saying if somebody doesn't want to pierce vulvas whatsoever, they just want to do penile piercings, why do they have to get this licensing to do that? So would you like to see a separation in vulva specialty licensing and penile specialty licensing? Like, would that be something that you would like to see, or do you want to just be, because as somebody with a vulva, I would not want somebody who's only done a PA to do my hood.
Mm-hmm.
Or
would you would if they didn't know how to do that piercing. You want someone that knows how to do the piercing first and foremost, correct?
yeah, so if somebody had gotten their specialty 1 license and they're like, I have my specialty 1, I can do genital piercings, but they only got it by doing penile piercings, and I didn't know that as a general consumer, and they did a hood and they botched it, and then I found out, they've never pierced a vulva before, I would be bamboozled by their licensing. So, that's why I like having both under an umbrella if we're doing all of them. But I do think you make an interesting point in that some people don't want to pierce vulvas and some people don't want to pierce penises. So a separation in the two could be an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you were going? Am I understanding that?
You're totally on it in a lot of ways. So as of right now, when we're talking about genital piercings, we have the 2 types, and we're saying, okay, you can go in and get your level 1. You have to do so many of this piercing, so many of that piercing, and you can pick and choose from the categories. What I'm saying is that within those categories, you have to choose male categories and female categories. I think that as a piercer, and then you get your license, and you get your license under the guise that you know how to do all those level 1 piercings once you get the license. Now, what if you choose not to do those things? You're still under the same the same point that you made, which was a very valid point of you've never done those piercings and you don't know what you're doing. So then we would have to, in that sense, have them do all the piercings in order for it to be correct. And we've already decided that doing all the piercings is not going to work out, especially in level 2. So my idea is why are we holding this At level 2, why are we making the exception, which does need to be made 100%? Why aren't we making the same exception in level 1, where we're saying, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, I'm super comfortable piercing hoods because it's I was taught by my mentor how to do them and he didn't do anything else. Can I do 8 hoods and then get my license? Now I understand that you're licensing me for all things and hopefully I'm not doing something that I don't know what I'm doing, but at the same time, it's going to be really hard for that person who can only learn 1 or 2 of the genital piercings to then perform 4 separate types in each male-female category.
Well, we don't do that for specialty level 2 because you're getting that experience in your specialty level 1 with the vulva versus,
It's building off of that.
Yes. And in regards to choosing the difference is in the piercings, just kind of like any other license, like if you're a physician or whatever, you have to perform so many different, procedures or different surgeries on different individuals. But is everybody going to become a gynecologist in a sense? No, but they have to have some experience with that anatomy. And so just like with our estheticians, we offer, they have to do so many things, but is everybody going to do microdermabrasions? Absolutely not. They're going to do facial peels or whatever. And so in your standard learning to do that genitalia, you have to have some general experience in both of the types. And so then you can expand off of that and only do your, the penises through the...
That you're almost making the blanket statement that unless you perform the physical aspect of piercing the anatomy, you're not doing any learning towards it, which you're still requiring all this other learning. So you are addressing penile piercings, you are addressing vulva piercings, you're just not technically touching them. That's the difference I'm trying to make. Like, you definitely need to learn the school of it, and you definitely need to know about it. But whether you do those specific ones, I think would be under the guise of the competence of the piercer and the person training them. I mean, I still have piercers to this day that even at the end of their apprenticeship, I'm thinking, man, your apprenticeship might be done, but maybe you shouldn't do this piercing until you learn it a lot better. You know what I mean, in that sense?
Mm-hmm. But one of the things in regards to the piercing and in regards to the anatomy is actually touching it and feeling it and having hands-on in regards to where it lies and where it needs to be inserted and such is, I think, a key component of you can book learn all day long, but can you actually perform? There's a huge difference.
100% key component if that's the person that you need to perform, but that's not... I'm not saying that that's what you need to perform, just being licensed to have the ability to perform it is the difference. But we don't need to keep going on it if you guys don't want to.
My input on this subject is I totally see where you're coming from, Jared, but I feel like instead of further fracturing an already fractured licensing kind of that we have might not be the answer, even though I can totally get your point of view 100%.
I love your statement.
Because it's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, like you're saying, it's like some people might say, like, I have no plans to do any penile piercing. I'm not comfortable, like, touching that type of anatomy. I don't want to train in it. I totally get that. Hopefully it would be a thing where at least, in a professional, safe environment, obviously your mentor is going to be there while you're teaching. So hopefully, and it's so hard to say hopefully somebody will be comfortable because not everybody's going to be comfortable in every situation. But like I said, they can choose after they get the license not to further that, and just do the absolute bare minimum to get the licensing and then choose not to do that type of piercing for the rest of their career. But like I said, I kind of feel like it's kind of works at cross purposes to what we're trying to accomplish maybe with what we're discussing right now to further fracture an already divided tiered licensing kind of thing. That's just my opinion on it, and I'm happy to hear anybody else's.
Yeah, I agree with what Aaron said. We already are looking to keep essentially Oregon having three individual licenses, I don't think we need to separate it into like 5. You know?
I didn't say that, but.
No. I mean, we were talking about like splitting like it to like, you know, penile specialty 1 and then vulva specialty 1. I don't want to see a fractured licensing system become more fractured, as Aaron said.
You know, one of the things I think maybe as a compromise, Jared, what we could do is reduce the number instead of the 4 penile and 4, I'm just going to call them male and female for right now until I can get that
Sure.
language under my belt, okay?
No
So for
problem.
the 4 male and 4 female, we could, you know, do a minimum of 2 male and 2 female out of the 8. So, you know, you're going to have, you know, so for example, if you still got that minimum experience, however, if you feel more comfortable doing the males, then, you know, for the penises, you're going to be able to do more of those during that. That is a total, I think, a great compromise if everybody's happy with that.
That's fine. I definitely, I support that. I don't want anybody to do any piercings that they don't want to do, or that they're not comfortable engaging in that situation. Like, I don't want anybody to feel out of place in that situation. That's a really important part of those types of procedures for the practitioner and the client. But you know, at the same time, like, I definitely think that piercers absolutely need a little bit of base knowledge and hands-on experience with every single type of anatomy that they could come across. So I definitely don't think that I think that people need to be able to see everything at least once before they're licensed to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll reduce the number of the differences in required. However, where is that minimum of, and going back to what Seth had initially said, the equal observed and performed. So if we're going to do 10 and 10, that's going to be a total of 20 hours, and we could do a total of 8 observed. In regards to and we can change that. I can change the wording to make it to where even though you're doing the total 8 observed plus the 2 cheek, we can do the difference versus the male female, and I can do the wording in that, but the total number of observed with that 2 cheek piercing would be 10, and then the total number of performed would be 10 as well. And again, modifying that number versus the requirements, and then those 2 cheek piercings. So the total hours would be 20, and then total 10 of observed and 10 of performed. Is everybody comfortable with that? The only other option we have, well, let's look at the front options. What were they? Well, that's kind of right in line with that first alternate that they had in regards to the 20. So if you guys want to go that with it.
What are the hours that you're proposing right now?
20, which was the first alternate, but I mean, just looking at that, I didn't realize that was the first alternate in the specialty, but my recommendation, or not my recommendation, what I'm talking about in regards to numbers, I suppose it would be my recommendation. Sorry, guys. What I've come up with is the 10 and 10, which aligns with you, observed, performed, consistent numbers, and then 8 of each, plus the 2 cheek piercings in each.
I personally feel okay with that, but curious to hear what other people have opinions about.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that's great.
The only other option is reducing it down to the 8 of 10 and 8 performed or observed and 8 performed, and that would reduce the hours to 16 instead of 20. Depends. I mean, 8 observed, 8 performed, but then you're doing it 3 and 3 because you have to have those 2 cheeks.
Maybe 8 observed and participated and 10 performed. So like 18. You know, I mean, I like the idea of evening it out a bit, but I still kind of think that hands-on practicality experiences outweighs observing personally,
Yes.
to an extent.
Yes.
Just a suggestion.
Well, you're performing 10 and then you're going to perform, so that would be 4 of the different anatomy, 4 of each on the performed of the different anatomy plus the 2 cheek piercings. So, you know, I think that would, and then if you're going to do the 8, it would be the observing the 3 of each on the different anatomy and then the 2 cheeks. So it's what's better for public safety in regards to, I mean, is a minimum competence 8 versus 10? You're only talking about 2 piercings here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're kind of splitting hairs.
Yeah.
It does, I mean, it's not that. I don't think it makes that big of a difference. I mean, if you want, if it's easiest to keep it 10 and 10, that's cool.
Well, if you think about it, that's 2 days worth of piercings though, I suppose, in hours and work. If you're talking 16 hours.
Yeah, if you can get them all in the door.
8 hours, well, yeah, no. I mean, just overall hours.
I know what you're saying, no.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking, 4-hour difference here. And number of piercings.
No, I mean, I'm fine with keeping it the way it is. I mean, I don't.
So is everybody okay with the 8 observed and the 10 performed with the differences in anatomy plus the 2 cheek piercings, making it the 18 hours?
I feel okay with that.
You okay with that? Okay. So let's do that. I'll put that together, and that's what we'll recommend with the change in the language for the anatomy, and do the 3 different types of each. Oh, no, how did you want to do that with the types of each? You wanted 2 and 2 of the different types. However, total is going to be, on the 8 observed, a total of 6 performed, even though it's going to be 2 different types, and then plus those 2 cheek piercings. Okay, I'll put that language together. All right. Okay, so now let's go to tab 3B. Again, last page. But you guys, we're going to take a 5-minute, about a 5 to 7 minute break, okay?
That'd be great.
Okay, so let's reconvene here at, what time is it? 11:50?
Sounds good.
Is that okay? Okay, we'll reconvene at 11:50. See you soon.
Right.